top children's doctor promised to love and cherish this woman, he already had 2 wives.
To be married in front of my family, in a church, by a minister, and have that turned out to be lies, that is really tough.
This work of art got a cool reception.
Well, I don't see how it can be called art. It's just white paint.
Until the artist walked into the gallery.
I could see that texture and almost imagine rolling on it and feeling the grass, very, very short grass underneath me.
This man worked undercover. He'd be dead if his real identity had been revealed.
When I lie and I pretend to be somebody else, I don't feel guilty because it's my job. That's what I do for a living.
We all lie. But when? How often? Who to? And what makes some people better at it? What's the truth about telling lies?
I would like to say to whoever has my children that they please bring them home.
Susan Smith is seen here as a grief-stricken mother, appealing for the return of her children from a wicked kidnapper. She was lying. The Courthouse of Union, a very small town in South Carolina, served as the backdrop to one of the most shocking cases of murder and then lying to cover up that the American people have ever witnessed. Susan Smith was a bad liar. The man who exposed her lies and finally brought her to justice is the town sheriff, Howard Wells. For him, the story began here on the night of October 25th, 1994.
I was just leaving the courthouse when the call came in to 911 that there had been a young white female carjacked, and she'd been abducted and her children were taken.
The lights at this intersection would later become critical in proving that Susan was lying. While she was stopped at a red light, claimed her first statement to the police, a kidnapper got in the car and, at gunpoint, ordered her to drive to John D. Long Lake, on the outskirts of the town. Once there, he pushed her out of the car and drove off with the children.
We're coming up now to the entrance to John D. Long Lake. Susan stated that the carjacker made her pull over partially to the shoulder of the road and forced her from the vehicle right here. Susan ran from the other direction to this house.
The 911 call was made from here, the home of the McLeod family. Sheriff Wells came straight here to interview Susan. The first shock was that he knew her and her 2 children, Michael, aged 3, and Alex, aged 14 months. He's godfather to a cousin of these children because of his friendship with Susan's brother. His second shock was Susan's reaction to his question about whether the kidnapper had sexually assaulted her.
And at that point, Susan looked at me and she smiled and says, "No, it wasn't anything like that." And for the type of crime that had just been committed with one's children missing and such a sense of helplessness, I thought it was unusual that she could even offer a smile at that point. I said, well, you know, maybe there's more to this, or she knows more than what we do at this point. We're trying to...
Sheriff Wells was now alert to the possibility that Susan's story might be a pack of lies. His suspicions grew when he asked her to work with an artist to draw up a picture of the kidnapper. Genuine victims of crime tend to remember a couple of details, like eyes, vividly, but become more and more vague. Susan was the opposite. Sheriff Wells hoped the TV appeals might reveal further inconsistencies.
You know, I was thinking last night, as a mother, it's only a natural instinct to protect your children from any harm. And the hardest part of this whole ordeal is not knowing if your children are getting what they need to survive.
The appeals actually were beneficial to us. She was giving details over and over again, and it would be little variances or little details that were changed.
It hurt. It hurts real bad to have that protection barrier broken between the parent and the child.
That's the difference between the truth and the lie. The truth is the same regardless of how many times you tell it. When you confront a lie with a fact, a person has to create another lie or an explanation, and it's ongoing.
Susan Smith's TV appearances convinced many Americans that she was a liar.
I'm going to get my children before I go. He said, no, you can't. He said, I don't have time for that. You know, he just, and sort of pushed me on out the door, helped me get on out the door, and he slammed the door and took off.
Just the way she was looking as a mother, I'd be screaming and hollering and gonna find my kids, and the way she was looking, she was just like, no compassion, you know, for looking for her kids.
I said all the time she's lying.
I don't know, there was just something different about her, that she had no tears, no remorse, not at all.
When Susan Smith first appeared on television, I got phone calls from former students and from around the country, and policemen I trained, and say, hey, you got to tune in television and watch this woman because you can see she's lying.
Paul Ekman has traveled the world studying facial expressions, the masks we all put on, and what's really behind them. He did not think Susan Smith's lack of emotion was necessarily proof of her guilt.
It's crazy. I just, and it's been since 9 o'clock last night, you know, and I really thought that when it got daylight, they would find them just in a heartbeat, but they haven't.
There's a famous case in Australia of a woman, Lindy Chamberlain, who was falsely convicted of killing her baby, on the same basis that Susan Smith could have been misjudged, because she showed no emotion when she talked about the death of her infant.
Lindy Chamberlain claimed that a wild dog, a dingo, had entered their camp at Ayers Rock, taken the baby, and killed it. It turned out to be true.
In the heart of the Australian outback.
The jury didn't believe her because her emotions were so flat, and they thought anybody, any mother would show strong emotions about the death of their child. Just like people thought Susan Smith must be lying because she didn't show strong emotions. But for Lindy Chamberlain, that's her normal behavior. She's not a very emotionally expressive person.
Michael and Alex, I love you, and we're going to have the biggest celebration when you get home. Just be strong and hang on to each other and just be sweet.
Susan Smith's lack of emotion was no proof she was a liar. But the police had now found a letter that gave her a motive for harming her children and lying to cover up. She was separated from her husband and had a boyfriend. He wrote to her a week before the children disappeared, saying that he could have fallen in love with her, but he didn't want children. But how could the police prove she was lying? The details of her story were what finally gave her away. For example, Susan claimed that she was stopped at a red traffic light and there were no other cars in sight. This starting point to her story didn't fit the facts.
There's no opposing traffic in this intersection right over here to our right. So therefore, we've got a constant green light. She could not have had a red light stopped at this intersection and not been another car at this intersection.
After 9 days, Susan was forced to change her version of where the kidnapper got in the car.
We sent her home that day. She rode with an officer and come down and showed this intersection, said this is where it happened, this is where it was, and said the reason I didn't tell it straight to start with, I didn't have a reason for being here. And if my family would have asked questions, I would have had to explain it.
Sheriff Wells now came up with a lie of his own to trip her up and force her to tell him the truth.
At this particular intersection, I told her, said, Susan, it couldn't have happened there either, and she asked me why. And I advised her that this particular intersection had been under surveillance for a drug drop. And when I told her that, I said, so it couldn't have happened here either. And I said, Susan, it's time. It's time, you know, that we actually found out the truth. And Susan broke down then and started crying and sobbing and said, you don't understand, you don't understand. And I asked her, what was it I didn't understand? And Susan said, my children are not all right. I let her tell me her story, and she told me that the children were in John D. Long Lake, still in the car, that she had let the car go into the water.
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the deaths of her children, Michael 3, and Alexander 14 months.
Sheriff Wells now had the gruesome task of returning to the lake to pull out the car and the bodies of the children.
In 1994, the ramp that accessed this lake went directly through here at this angle. The car floated for over 5 minutes. It went out, and this was in total darkness. But the car actually turned and started sinking nose first. The car went 115 feet from shore, I believe it was, and turned upside down on its top.
Susan was a bad liar. Good detective work led to her arrest, but a different lie might have worked.
It's been observed now that had she have chosen a different story, let's say I was very distraught, things in my life weren't going well, I was trying to get my thoughts together, my children were in the back asleep, well, I stepped out of my car and it rolled into the water. If she'd been up front, that the car was in the water from the very start, there would probably been such an outpouring of sympathy from the public that it would have been very difficult to ever even question her to any degree to find out how it happened, negligence or intent or whatever.
The final irony is that Susan's lies were exposed because, like most liars, she wanted people to think well of her. If she had constructed a lie closer to the truth, for example, admitting that she had been negligent rather than accusing a kidnapper, she might have gotten away with her crime.
The secret of being a good liar is making sure you have your story straight. And one of the keys is trying to keep the story as close to the truth as possible without giving out too many details.
This man is a professional liar. 10 years ago, he became an undercover agent for the DEA in San Diego. Although he rarely works undercover now, he knows all the secrets of successful lying. To catch a drug trafficker, you have to pretend to be one.
Rodrigo. Yeah, it's Victor.
His name's not Victor, it's Vince. But the two names are deliberately similar, so he will remember to respond whenever he hears his false name.
Right, we just finished that construction job. We had a remodeling job a couple of
And Vince has chosen the construction business as his fake job because he's worked in it so he can give accurate details.
Listen, I'm in a cab right now heading from the airport to my hotel, so I don't want to talk too much. All right, sounds good.
But once the undercover agent has to deviate widely from the truth, there's only one way to stay alive. And that's to learn the tricks of the trade of being a good liar.
We showed people a number of paintings, and we asked them what they thought of the paintings. They picked out the ones they liked the most, the ones they really hated.
I have a feeling it would just dominate a space. I think I'd find it a bit tedious to live with. I think I'd get a bit bored with it after a while.
And then, after they did that, we introduced them to another person who said, by the way, I painted that myself. What do you think of it?
It'd be very interesting for me to hear how you feel about it.
Yeah, okay.
So, do you like it, or?
Yeah, it's dramatic. It's very vivid.
Is it the type of thing you could live with? I never know with my work whether people feel comfortable because they're quite assertive.
I mean, I'm a bit of a minimalist, really. I don't really have a lot of stuff on my walls at all. It's something I'd be quite happy to have a relationship with now and then.
Well, I don't see how it can be called art. It's just white paint. It just looks like a white space. It's nothing really, I don't think. And you spend all that time doing it, and it looks nothing from when you're over there. It just looks like the wall. Total waste of time.
I'm Jack. This is mine. The title is actually Blades of Grass on the Lawn. Well, yeah, they said that. I mean, when possibly because I don't really see the stars, I then could imagine, I could see that texture and almost imagine rolling on it and feeling the grass, very, very short grass underneath me. And again, because of the edging texture.
It's not something that is my usual taste, I'd say. I tend to prefer things that are a bit less bright.
The main result of the experiment was that although everyone made some attempt to spare the artist's feelings, women tried harder than men.
I mean, the colours are just so amazing. It gives you a sense of the omnipotence of God.
That's. Well, I hope everyone else is going to think like that.
God, yeah.
So
I mean,
do you think?
Are they very expensive?
Yeah, it's about £4,500 that one.
I better start saving up.
Oh, so you like it that much? That's nice.
Trying to spare someone's feelings is only one aspect of lying. Bella DePaulo is famous for carrying out the first formal study on day-to-day lying.
People lie for many reasons. In fact, they lie for all the same reasons that they tell the truth. For example, they lie to make a good impression. They lie to avoid punishment. They lie to make someone else look better or feel better. They lie to get what they want.
Every social interaction we make is a chance to lie. But how often do we take up this opportunity? Bella DePaulo asked 77 college students and 70 people in the community to keep a diary for a week. They wrote down all the lies they told and all the people to whom they lied. Despite the differences between the two groups, a pattern of lying emerged.
Hello? Felicity? Hi. Yeah, look, I'm really sorry. I'm in the most terrible traffic. Yeah, it's absolutely chock-a-block.
All of us lie to get ourselves out of trouble and to avoid embarrassment.
Yeah, it's just that it's hardly moving.
But there are some interesting gender differences.
The way that men and women differ is in the kinds of lies they tell and the people to whom they tell those lies.
Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
Men are more likely to tell lies to impress other people.
Really?
We're actually sitting in this pub over there, so if you come down, you never know who you can spot.
Okay, honest opinion now, girl.
Of course.
Of course. Always
it's
tell me what
moving
you
it.
think.
Yeah. Wow.
Women are more likely to tell other women the kinds of lies we call altruistic, which are lies told to make someone else feel better or spare their feelings.
No, they're good. They're lovely, yeah.
In general, people tell their little lies to people they don't know very well and don't care about very much.
Do you have your seeds?
No, I don't. It was a present from a friend, so...
An exception to that is college students lying to their mothers. When college students call home and talk to their mothers, they lie in every other conversation they have.
Hi, Mum. How you doing? No, I can't talk long. I only see Giles. No, I sold the bike. I told you. It's a nice day for it, though. It's a shame. Okay, take care. Bye now.
People lie in 1 out of every 4 or 5 social interactions they have with people. They lie to about 1 in 3 of all of the people that they interact with. So lying, instead of being this very unusual behavior, it's something that we do all the time. Lying is just part of the fabric of everyday life.
But should all forms of deception be counted as lies? For some psychologists, a lie is only a lie if the person on the receiving end is unaware they're being duped.
A car salesman is an example of deception, but not a lie. Because we all know car salesmen don't tell you the truth. This is a bargaining situation. In bargaining, you don't put your cards face up.
Are used car salesmen, like poker players, playing a game with rules that allow bluffing? Or are they simply lying?
Well, if I was buying this car from you, I would say, first off, tires are mismatched. The front tires are smaller than the rear tires. The back end of it had some damage at one time and isn't lined up properly. And also the edging of the top material here is pulling away due to shrinkage. That would cost approximately $800 to $1,000. And also the vehicle has severe oil leaks. I can tell this vehicle just got brought up here and it's already got 3 spots under it. I wouldn't consider buying this car. There's too many problems with it. It looks nice at first glance, but it's a poor buy and I would stay away from it.
But what will he say to this customer?
Yes.
This woman is interested in buying a 4-door car. How's Mike going to persuade her to change her mind?
The relationship is to be their friend, gain their trust and empathy. What's your name?
Susie.
Pleasure to meet you, Susie.
Nice to meet you too.
Talk to them in a manner that's not condescending. Be yourself, relax. It's emerald green.
Yeah.
Matches your eyes.
And nice shiny tires and everything.
It has brand new tires.
Yeah.
These are a little bit smaller than the rears because you get better traction. It's a lot sportier that way.
Oh, okay.
There you go, Susie.
Ooh. It's big.
It is. It's a large engine. Although I talked about the oil before, and when I spoke to my customer about the vehicle, I didn't mention that, but it's just a small leak, and I don't think it's something that it should be brought up. Very reliable, no problems that I can think of. Don't give them too much pressure, but at the same time, give them pressure, but them not realizing that you're giving them pressure. Why don't I put it down? We take it for a ride. I'm sure you'll want to take this car home.
Yeah, I would.
That's a great car.
Well, like I said, I wasn't actually looking for a convertible, but...
Once you drive this, you're going to change your mind.
Yeah.
I know you will. Even if the product they're selling doesn't have everything quite right, you don't let the customer pick that up. Everything's in beautiful shape. See, everything lines up perfectly.
Yeah. And, what's happening here?
Oh, this is nothing. This can easily be stitched back. This is no problem at all. I can do that for $20.
Oh, and what was the mileage on it?
The mileage is only 75,000 miles.
Oh, 85,000 miles.
Right, didn't I say that? 75, 85, something like that?
Yeah.
Is this legitimate bluffing or outright lying? Do customers know when they're being lied to?
We did a study with people who are experienced salespersons.
Feels very sporty.
Well, it's the modern Chrysler.
I do like it, yeah.
Chrysler's got a lot of great design, and it does look
Yeah.
like a more expensive car, and it's only $7,000.
And when we showed videotapes of those salespersons to other people, they had no idea when they were lying and when they were telling the truth.
Would you get something like this?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the color. I love the style.
Yeah.
What I mean when I say they can't tell is that sure, they're calling some of the lies lies, but if they're calling just as many of the truths lies, they're not getting it.
Fantastic.
They also don't construe what they're doing as lying. So they might say, oh, we're not really lying, we're stretching the truth.
Oh.
I have to make a living. The customer needs transportation. If I'm telling a little bit of a fib, I don't think it's a sin to do that. There's certainly things that customers don't tell us in this business also. So it's a give and take situation. We just put it in drive.
Susie did buy a car from Mike, but not this one.
Oh, it's a nice smooth ride.
Careers like sales are ideal for people with a natural ability to lie and not get caught.
My research shows that about 5% of a normal population are seamless liars, natural liars. Probably a better term for them is natural performers.
Norman Lewiston was a brilliant liar. His life was a success story. He became a top children's doctor at Stanford University near San Francisco. With his wife Diana, he had 3 children, and although 20 years later they divorced, it was amicable. His second marriage to Katie Morgan, a work colleague, was blissfully happy. But after 6 years with Norman, Katie's life was shattered. Her nightmare began with a phone call at home from a nurse who worked with both Katie and Norman at the hospital.
She called and said, Katie, I have something to tell you. Norman passed away today. And I said, no, he didn't. Because I'd seen him the night before and kissed him goodbye, and he seemed fine other than tired. So she finally convinced me that, yes, he did pass away. And then just before she hung up, she said to me, Diana signed the death certificate, Katie. And I go, Diana? Why did Diana? And she says, well, he died at Diana's house at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I said, what was he doing at Diana's house? She said, well, that's apparently she's still his wife.
Being a busy doctor made it easier for Norman to dupe Diana and Katie. He could claim to be sleeping in the on-call room, and the main point of contact was his pager. So throughout his marriage to Katie, Norman ate and slept at 2 different houses, only 3 miles apart.
When I went to Norm's office to pick up his things and to remove his items from the office about 2 days after, I found among his things this scrapbook, which I was totally shocked to find. And it has all of his life here. A picture of apparently his family here. This is at a party at friends' houses that I never met.
The scrapbook proved that Katie had been excluded from many areas of Norman's life. And that was not all. There was shocking evidence of yet another secret life.
And then Robin.
A 3rd marriage to Robin Phelps, who had also worked with Norman at Stanford University. When Robin married Norman, she moved nearly 1,000 miles south to San Diego because he had a new job there. But Norman had lied about his new job. It was a sabbatical only. After 6 months, he moved back to Stanford, and Robin saw him only on some weekends. Despite this setback, for 2 years, Robin believed she had a very happy marriage, until she discovered that his first 2 wives were not, as she thought, ex-wives.
I think the thing that is most painful for me is that it puts into doubt the relationship, and it puts into doubt every conversation that you had, every memory. Was it real? I thought when we got married, we had made a commitment to each other, and it was a commitment that was going to be for the rest of our lives. And to be married in front of my family, in a church, by a minister, and have that turned out to be lies, that is really tough.
I would go in the shower and I would just scream and yell at him in the shower and tell him that I hope to God, if there was a God, that he would see the chaos. They would make you, after you died, look down and look back and see how you affected people's lives. You know, so you could see the hurt and the trauma and, oh my God, that you can cause. It brings up the fact that why did he do this? You know, it just makes me think, God, I don't understand it. I really don't. To this day, I have no conception. I mean, I look at this and I feel for these people here, because every single one of these people in here loved him in some way and was duped by him.
I wish I could have met Norman Lewis and interviewed him. He must have been a spectacular performer, able to become the role he played with each spouse.
The man had a mind like a computer. You put a new disc in, it's a whole new life, you know, from one place to the other. He never once called me by anything but my name. He had a very inherent sense about what people were thinking, and he could read body language extremely well, facial language, so he would concoct an answer almost immediately that you would want to hear.
Seamless liars can easily take the perspective of the other person. They can plan ahead like a chess player. They can improvise conversationally. They generally are charming, and they can control their emotions. Now, those are all highly desirable characteristics.
Norman Lewiston misused his enormous personal charisma. The price may have been his early death at 52. But he possessed personal qualities that are essential to leaders in any field, especially leading politicians.
Almost all of human communication is about manipulation. A person is always trying to get another person to do their bidding. What leaders apparently are particularly good at is enhancing emotions that may not be heartfelt and disguising emotions they really feel. And by disguising these emotions, we're really just a hop, skip, and a jump away from outright lying.
But I want to say one thing to the American people.
I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never.
There can be no whitewash at the White House.
The proof of the link between leadership and lying came about as the result of research carried out in the psychology department of Colgate University in Hamilton, New York. The first experiment involved inviting in many different groups and asking them to work out a way of surviving a plane crash. The real aim of the task was to see who emerged as the natural leader of each group, and then in a second experiment to see who was the best liar. Would the best liar also be the best leader?
You have just crash landed in the woods of northern Minnesota and southern Manitoba. It is 11:30 a.m. in mid-January. The small plane in which you were traveling was completely destroyed except for the frame. The pilot and co-pilot have been killed, but no one else is seriously injured. So good luck on this problem.
Okay, we have a knife, newspaper.
So someone's gonna know that we're gone. So I don't think the chocolate bar is gonna be that important. Yeah.
Could you do what you were talking about with the steel wallet?
I like the girl in black. She pointed.
Or do you really need the lighter?
And the other girl responded with a submissive gesture.
All right, so what are we gonna do after we get the clothes? Personally, I don't think a flashlight will be very important in the situation. You could signal a plane or something if it was over you, though.
I think the knife.
Put the flashlight last.
Yeah.
Look at the rest of the group and where they're showing their interest and where their eye contact is going. They'll look at the most influential member most of the time.
We could use the paper off of the chocolate bar instead of the newspaper because it would work just as well.
Lighter or shortening first? Lighter. All right.
Please rank each of the 6 people in your group, including yourself, in terms of how dominant or influential the person was during the group discussion.
Once they have decided who dominated their group, they move on to the next experiment, which will reveal the best liars. This time the task is to try 2 different drinks, a bitter one and a sweet one. They have to persuade Carrie that they like both drinks. Easy when they tell the truth about the sweet drink, but harder when they have to lie that the bitter drink tastes good.
I want you to give me 2 persuasive performances so that I don't know whether you're doing this or this. Clear?
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as sweet, so it just, I don't know, it tasted better.
Yeah.
It had sort of more of like a kick than the other drink. The other drink was too sugary. This one, it was sort of, I don't know, it had more of a salty taste to it.
Very sugary.
It had a good quality. It's more of an acquired taste, I would think. But I definitely liked it.
It just tasted good. It wasn't too sweet or too sour, and it's just good.
Everyone here was lying. But did you think that this man and this woman were better liars? Because in our experiment, they were each voted the leader of their group.
Which drink did you really like the best?
Beef.
That was good. I feel like I got conned.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be good at this too, so that's a little scary.
For the original experiment, Carrie Keating filmed hundreds of performances and showed them to a cross-section of outsiders. In this big sample, the people chosen as the best liars turned out to be the same people that had been the leaders in the plane crash survival task.
What we've demonstrated is really an association between deception skill and the ability to lead. But that doesn't necessarily mean that leaders tell more lies than any of the rest of us. What the research does suggest is this, that when a leader lies, they're going to be really good at it.
The lies of political leaders have brought down governments, started wars, and given the press the chance to have regular feeding frenzies of moral outrage.
That was, and that is, the simple truth.
For Cecilia Bach, a Harvard professor who has written extensively about public lies, they are also responsible for the steady erosion of democracy.
We see in the United States now, 50% of the public did not vote in the past election. But that means that when we talk about what the public wants, we're talking about only half of the public. The other one isn't voting. Many of them regard all politicians as dishonest, which they're not. And therefore, every single politician, every single public official who tells one more lie is helping to undermine the trust in government that really relies on.
We don't vote for political leaders just on the basis of their policies. We vote for them because of the way they look. We think this face looks less honest than this one. Why? Because people are more likely to be believed if they have one thing: a baby face.
The cues on a baby's face, the big eyes and the arched thin brows, the tiny nose, the round chin, the full lips, the long lashes, those cues speak to us without a muscle moving. And what they say is, take care of me, I'm vulnerable, I won't hurt you. Those cues are very, very powerful and make us trust in a baby face. One example we used was President Bill Clinton's face. We made his face more babyish. We increased his eye size and increased the fullness of the lips. And what we found is that we made him look more believable, not only to Clinton's supporters, but also to non-supporters. It was his baby face that they believed in. The most interesting thing about that research was this: those individuals never knew we changed anything on his face. The unfortunate side of all of this, of course, is that if you happen to be born with the small eyes, the thin lips, we may not trust you very much, no matter how honest you are.
But the truth about telling lies is that whatever we look like, we all do it. It's a uniquely human achievement, and the people who are best at it are often brighter, more attractive, and more successful than the rest of us. From a moral standpoint, lies are often destructive, but intellectually, the ability to tell a good lie is a sophisticated skill that's underrated.
Lying is the most undesirable characteristic. If you look at public opinion polls, honesty is always in the first 2 or 3 characteristics, and yet there clearly are times when it's crucial for our survival to be able to lie.
If you like this TLC show, you can own it on video. Call this number and get your own high-quality VHS tape of the episode you just watched. Satisfaction guaranteed. Call now to order.
How can you tell if someone is lying to you? Is it really written all over their face? From polygraphs to emotionally savvy computers, science has come up with many methods to see if we're being truthful. The Lying Game, Detecting Lies, next on TLC.